Hey there folks, how you doing today? Welcome back to the channel. Please bear with any background racket that you might hear throughout this production. We are on location where life happens, and sometimes there's stuff going on out there that interferes with what we're trying to do in here. Folks, this is part one of a multi-part series covering this pistol, the brand new to the market Hi-Point YC9 YEET cannon pistol. Also, while uncharacteristic of this channel, I will point out to you right now, if you got little ones in the room and you don't want to have to explain anything that could be construed as colorful language, you might want to send them to go do something else for this clip there, Mom and Dad. Just trying to keep it family friendly, but sometimes there's stuff that's mentioned that is a little off color. If you watch that little intro clip there, you'll see that it looked like the YEET cannon was off to the races. We fired 10 rounds without any malfunctions in that clip. Also, if you look behind me here on the BakerTargets.com target, no, we are not sponsored by Baker Targets. These were provided by a loyal viewer of the channel. You will see some very respectable looking groups on the paper that came from this pistol. But much like the camera mount failing at the beginning of that intro clip, the YEET cannon YC9 had a little bit of trouble handling the heat. We will cover all that and more throughout this series, but let's get started, folks. So now many of you are probably wondering why I chose to cover the Hi-Point in the first place. I have made some questionable comments concerning them in the past. Most of those were made in fun, poking fun at the Hi-Point for what it is. Understand that when I was a young man, I purchased a Hi-Point C9 from my local hardware store out the door for about $100. In 2023 dollars, I paid about the same price for this one. So now, before we go any further, I'd like to show you here, folks, this is a safe and empty weapon. We don't have any ammunition for it out here in this area. I do have a shotgun shell. Won't fit in the gun. Don't worry about that, folks. It's just to prop it up to make it look pretty for you. So what is the YC9? Well, the YC9 is the legitimized, unholy conception of the Boogaloo movement. Hi-Point embraced the suck and claimed the bastard child of the pores. Talk of the new YC9 started several years ago, but it took the folks at Hi-Point over in Ohio longer to get a production-ready model on the market than it did for India to stage a moon landing. So what are the biggest differences between the old Hi-Point C9 and the Hi-Point YC9? Well, the new Hi-Point addresses the modern pistol buyer's needs and wants in the following areas. It starts with improved checkering on the grip. That really is a plus. It also adds slide serrations, if you want to call them that. They're not cuts in the slide, rather it appears to be something that was molded into the material that the slide is made out of. Regardless, they look okay and they work well. Also, here down at the bottom, you have a Picatinny rail for mounting a light or
in essence a sophisticated heat beam which we called a laser.
You also have the ability to mount an optic to it by removing the rear sight and purchasing and installing either the proprietary Hi-Point rear sight RMS SMS plate or stealing this from someone else. In true Hi-Point fashion, they have one that just has a section of pick rail where you could literally mount just about anything to it. More on mounting optics to the YEET cannon later. And perhaps the biggest improvement Hi-Point made with this pistol is increased magazine capacity. Yes, that's right. Hi-Point pistols, Hi-Point carbines, throughout history from the dawn of time, have had single stack, fairly low, albeit very conservative capacities on their magazines, especially when you consider the overall weight of the weapon. Well, they set out to improve upon that by making a SIG P365-esque stack-and-a-half magazine for the new YC9, increasing the pistol's capacity to a whopping 11 rounds. The The YC9 also has a threaded barrel, which affords you the opportunity to mount some type of muzzle device. We will leave it at that, YouTube. So the C9 is the epitome of the moped your parents gave you in high school, in that they are fun to ride, but you really didn't want your friends to see you on one. Now, for as uncool as the original C9 was, it was, in most cases, absolutely reliable. And in a world of Jennings and Phoenix and other Ring of Fire budget-friendly handguns of the late 90s, early 2000s era, it was refreshing to have something in that price range on the market that actually worked. Now, that being said, while I quickly learned that you can build a house using nothing but hand tools, it's nice to have a better tool if the option is available. And unfortunately, Hi-Point has always kind of been the epitome of that statement too. Sure, it'll work, but there's probably something that will work better. Now, folks, don't get me wrong here. I really, truly appreciate Hi-Point for what they have consistently provided to the Second Amendment community, and that is a reliable, functional self-defense weapon that literally anyone could afford. That being said, I think with this new magazine design that they have employed in the YEET cannon, that maybe they might be in a little over their head. We will certainly address that in depth rolling forward. So moving right along, let me show you what I'm talking about here, folks. If you look here at the back of the magazine, you'll see how we start out with, it's not really a double stack, it's almost a double stack that tapers into a single stack for the upper, not quite half, better than a third portion of the magazine. Now, I believe Hi-Point did this so that they could fit the new magazine more or less into the upper end of what they already had, which was a very good, very reliable, very crude, very heavy single stack hammer-fired action. With the new magazine, and I really think this is probably why it took so long for them to get it out on the market, there appear to be some hurdles. I purchased this pistol at a premium immediately as soon as I knew they were available on the market. It took about a week and a half to get it. I picked it up yesterday, Friday, August 25th. Yeah, I think it was the 25th. Took it to the range, lubricated it where it needed lubricating using Professor Pew CLP, and commenced to firing about 250 rounds through it. Now, I fired several different Full Metal Jacket practice ammos as well as a couple of types of premium hollow points through it to see what kind of accuracy we would get and to see how reliable it would be. So concerning accuracy, if you look over here, you'll see this first group that we shot was with the Winchester forged 115 grain Full Metal Jackets. That's that nasty steel case stuff that nothing likes to function with. It actually functioned pretty good through the YC9. You'll see here the group was not bad. This was all shot at 7 yards, folks. It was, however, very high and a little bit to the left. So I adjusted the sights as much as I could, and I fired a second group over here on this side, and you'll see that while it was a little lower, it was still a little high concerning the point of impact. This resulted in, at 25 yards, having to aim at the bottom of the steel plate in order to make hits on target. I moved on to Winchester 115 grain Full Metal Jacket. The group wasn't great. It was pretty well centered, and again, it was higher than what I would have liked for it to be. Coming down here to this group, this was Federal Hydra-Shocks, 147 grain, I believe they were. Not a bad group, again, a little high. And over here on this side, these were Monarch steel cased from Academy. They also fired pretty well. This last group up here was shot with some Spear Gold Dots. While it was a nice sized group, they didn't function that well. And that brings me on to talking about the function with the pistol. I'll show you here in a couple of the video clips where you'll see time and again where we had issues with the pistol hanging up. What seemed to be most common was rounds going on a nosedive in the magazine. Once you got down to about 7 or 8 rounds in the magazine, it functioned okay, but with a fully loaded magazine, with most of the types of ammo that we fired through it, they just didn't perform well. Failure to feed federal type. Monarch steel case. Stovepipe with the Monarch steel case. Sixth round down in the magazine. Take it back. Fifth round down. Try that again. Seems to be a problem when it transitions from the single stack. Lincoln UMC, 10 rounds, 25 yards, steel part. Stovepipe there. With the Remington UMC. Otherwise, 9 and 0. The trigger pull on the new YC9 breaks at an obnoxious 6.5 pounds. It feels heavier than that. It's not a good trigger pull. However, as you saw on the target, accuracy, at least at close range distances, wasn't too bad. Certainly good enough for personal protection. So now we're going to address some of the obvious issues that I found with the pistol. For starters, I think this magazine needs to be replaced. Hopefully they get the bugs worked out of the magazines, but I think it is definitely the weak link in the armor on this pistol. At defensive ranges, let's say we're talking about you're pumping gas and somebody comes to mug you, accuracy like this is certainly going to work. Out at 25 yards, that hitting high was enough to where you had to noticeably hold under in order to make hits. I've bottomed out the rear sight. There's no more movement in it, so I'm going to say I really wish the sights were a little better on. We tried them with several readily available ammunitions, and they were all consistently hitting high. That tells me the sights on the pistol are just a little off. I may go ahead and change out the rear notch sight for the ghost ring sight and see if that makes any difference at all, but I'm not holding my breath on it. More realistically, I'm probably going to mount an optic on here for future review. Mounting an optic on a $200 pistol kind of defeats the purpose of purchasing a $200 pistol, in my opinion. So there's that. Is the YC9 really a good deal? I paid out the door for this one about $260, which is a premium. Granted, I bought it literally the week they came out. You'll be able to find them cheaper than that in the near future. I'm confident of that. But with that being said, you can buy a Taurus G3C or a Taurus G3 for not much more than what I paid for this one. And both of those pistols have been tested exclusively here on this channel with really good results. So there's that. Am I saying I regret purchasing the YEET cannon? No, not really. I'm still going to play around with it and see what I can come up with. Between putting 250 rounds through it and paying for a range session, I spent more than half of what I spent on the pistol on that initial break-in session. If it takes much more rounds than that to get it broken in, then I'm going to say it really probably isn't a very good deal. However, you should practice with your new handgun regardless of what it is. So, I mean, that can go either way. Am I telling you to run out there and buy one? No, I'm not. Am I telling you maybe wait a little while and see how they do after they get some of the bugs worked out? Yeah, I think that's probably what I would do. This pistol, for those of you that want to know, has a serial number in the 1400 range. So there are literally only about 1,400 of these that were made before this one. This is a very early production gun. So what's the next step? What are we going to do with the High Point next? Let's see. I picked it up on Friday. I'm shooting this video on Saturday. High Point, when you call their phone number, which is what they tell you to do if you have an issue, it went right to a recording that says they are closed on Fridays and Saturdays. So come Monday morning, as soon as they're open, I'm going to give them a call, explain to them what I'm doing, what I'm experiencing. I'm hoping they will provide me with a different magazine, as well as I'm going to talk to them about the optic plate, because I'm working with Crimson Trace on getting an optic for this pistol for review. There will be more on it. I'm not writing it off. I'm just telling you that I could have been happier with it, because as you saw in the video clips there, I had repeated failure to feed. I think out of 250 rounds, I probably had about 20 failures of some type. Normally it was from the bullet nosediving in the magazine. So there's that. Side note, got some new channel stickers here for our Rumble channel. If you want one, leave me a message down below. I'll reach out to you. Get an address so I can send it to you. It won't cost you anything. I'm not asking for anything in return other than to say thanks for your loyal support here on the platform. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap this up for now. I've gone on long enough. Folks, leave me a comment down below what you think about the new YC9, what you would like to see me do with it here, and any comments or questions, concerns you might have concerning what we've done here on the program. So until next time, take care. God bless.